Sister secretly replaced my birth control pills because she wanted me to get pregnant. I never thought my own sister would betray me in the most intimate way possible, all because she was jealous of my choices. My name is Madison, and I'm 29 years old. I've always been the responsible one in my family, the planner, the one who had her life mapped out from an early age. I had a successful career as a marketing director, a loving boyfriend named Kevin, and a clear timeline for when I wanted to start a family. That timeline did not include right now. Kevin and I had been together for 3 years, living together in our cozy suburban home for the last one. We were happy, stable, and taking our time before marriage and children. That's why I had been religiously taking my birth control pills for the past 8 years, never missing a single dose. Or so I thought. It started on a Tuesday morning when I woke up feeling unusually nauseous. I dismissed it as something I ate, but the feeling persisted throughout the day. By Friday, when I still felt sick and my period was a week late, a sinking feeling began to settle in my stomach. Kevin noticed something was wrong when I pushed away my favorite dinner. His brow furrowed with concern, but I couldn't bring myself to voice my fears. I just mumbled something about a stomach bug going around. But deep down, I knew it was more than that. The next morning, while Kevin was still asleep, I drove to the pharmacy and bought 3 different pregnancy tests. My hands trembled as I followed the instructions, waiting the agonizing 3 minutes for the results. All 3 tests came back positive. I sank onto the bathroom floor, tears streaming down my face. This wasn't part of the plan. We weren't ready financially or emotionally for a child. I had always been so careful, so responsible. How could this have happened? When I told Kevin, he was surprisingly supportive. He wrapped his arms around me and told me we would figure it out together, that maybe it was fate. His words were meant to be comforting, but they only made me feel more confused. I had never been one to believe in fate. I believed in control, in planning, in making deliberate choices about my life. This pregnancy felt like something happening to me, not something I had chosen. My sister, Vanessa, was the first family member I called. She was 2 years younger than me and had always been the spontaneous one, the free spirit who lived life by the seat of her pants. We were close, or so I thought. When I told her the news, there was a moment of silence on the other end of the line, and then her voice came through, unusually bright. She was thrilled, ecstatic. I expected her to be shocked, maybe even a little concerned like I was, but her enthusiasm caught me off guard. I mentioned my confusion, how I didn't understand how it could have happened since I'd been so careful with my birth control. Vanessa's response was quick, almost rehearsed. She said that no birth control is 100% effective and that maybe it was just meant to be. As I hung up the phone, I couldn't shake the feeling that something was off. Vanessa had always been supportive, but her reaction seemed too positive, too prepared for this news. Little did I know that this was just the beginning of a nightmare that would unravel my entire life and reveal a betrayal I never could have imagined. Over the next few weeks, as I struggled to accept my unplanned pregnancy,
I couldn't help but notice how often Vanessa seemed to be at our house. She brought me pregnancy books, offered to drive me to doctor's appointments, and even started shopping for baby clothes. At first, I appreciated her support, but as time went on, her presence began to feel suffocating. She was always there, always watching, always smiling that bright, slightly too wide smile. And she always seemed to be in our bathroom, where I kept my birth control pills. I dismissed my suspicions as pregnancy paranoia, a symptom of the hormonal changes my body was undergoing. But the nagging feeling that something wasn't right persisted, growing stronger with each passing day. After the initial shock, Kevin and I had decided to embrace the unexpected addition to our family. We moved the wedding up, got married in a small ceremony when I was 5 months along, and began preparing for our daughter's arrival. Olivia was born healthy and beautiful, and despite the unplanned nature of her conception, I fell in love with motherhood instantly. But the joy was tinged with confusion and a lingering sense of betrayal by my own body. How could my birth control have failed so completely? I had done everything right, Taken my pills at the same time every day, never missed a dose. The doctor had tried to reassure me that sometimes these things just happen, that no method is foolproof. Still, I couldn't shake the feeling that something more was at play. Vanessa had been thrilled about Olivia's birth, perhaps even more than Kevin and me. She visited almost daily, always bringing gifts, always offering to babysit. At first, I appreciated her enthusiasm, but as the months went by, her constant presence began to feel intrusive. She seemed to have an opinion on everything: how I should feed Olivia, when she should sleep, what kind of toys she should have. Her comments, disguised as helpful advice, began to grate on my nerves. I was the mother. I knew what was best for my child. Why did Vanessa always have to insert herself into every aspect of my parenting? When Olivia was 6 months old, I went back to my gynecologist to get a new prescription for birth control. I loved my daughter more than anything, but Kevin and I had agreed that we wanted to wait at least 3 years before having another child. We needed time to adjust to our new life, to save money, to enjoy our little family of 3 before expanding it. The doctor recommended a different brand of pills, one with a lower hormone dosage that she said would be better for breastfeeding mothers. I filled the prescription and started taking them immediately, setting an alarm on my phone to ensure I never forgot a dose. Life settled into a new routine. Juggling motherhood and a demanding job was challenging, but Kevin and I made it work. Vanessa continued to be a constant presence, always available to babysit at a moment's notice, always ready with unsolicited advice about parenting. I should have been more suspicious when she offered to organize our medicine cabinet one weekend while I was out with Kevin. She said it was such a mess and she wanted to straighten it up for me. I had been grateful for the help, too exhausted from sleepless nights and long workdays to notice that my birth control pills looked slightly different afterward. The packaging was the same, the pills looked identical.
But something had changed. 2 months later, I found myself once again staring at a positive pregnancy test. My hands shook as I held the plastic stick, my mind racing with disbelief and confusion. This couldn't be happening again. I had been so careful, so diligent about taking my pills every day at the same time. Kevin's reaction was similar to the first time, surprised but ultimately supportive. He joked that maybe it was fate again, but this time I wasn't buying it. 2 accidental pregnancies while on birth control? The odds were astronomical. Something was wrong, and I was determined to find out what. My doctor was equally perplexed when I went for my first prenatal appointment. She told me that this was highly unusual, that the failure rate for combination birth control pills when taken correctly is less than 1%. To have 2 pregnancies while consistently taking them was practically impossible. Her words confirmed what I had suspected. This wasn't a coincidence. This wasn't fate. Something or someone was interfering with my birth control. As I drove home from the doctor's office, my mind raced through possibilities. Had I been taking the pills correctly? Yes. Had I been on any other medications? No. Had the pharmacy made a mistake? It was possible, but unlikely to happen twice. Then my thoughts turned to the people in my life who had access to my medication. Kevin, who had been nothing but supportive, my parents, who lived an hour away, and Vanessa, who was always there, always helpful, always a little too interested in my reproductive choices. The thought was so ridiculous, so paranoid, that I immediately dismissed it. Vanessa was my sister, my best friend. She wouldn't do something like that to me, would she? But as the days went by, I couldn't shake the suspicion. I found myself watching her more closely during her visits, noticing how often she seemed to be in our bathroom, how interested she was in my medication. One afternoon, when she thought I wasn't looking, I caught her opening the medicine cabinet and glancing at my birth control pills. When she saw me watching, she quickly closed the door and offered a flimsy excuse about looking for a bandage. I nodded, pretending to accept her explanation, but my heart was pounding in my chest. Something was definitely wrong, and I was beginning to suspect that my own sister was at the center of it. The next few weeks were a blur of pregnancy hormones and growing paranoia. I couldn't shake the feeling that Vanessa was somehow involved in my second unplanned pregnancy, but the idea seemed so insane that I struggled to accept it. Why would my own sister want me to get pregnant against my will? It made no sense. Kevin noticed my distraction and growing anxiety. He asked if everything was okay with the pregnancy. I hesitated, not sure how to explain my suspicions without sounding completely crazy. I told him I was just feeling overwhelmed, which wasn't entirely a lie. 2 babies in less than 2 years was a lot to take in. He nodded sympathetically, pulling me closer. His confidence in us was touching, but it didn't ease the turmoil in my mind. I needed to know what was happening. I started doing research online, looking into birth control failure rates and possible causes. The information I found only deepened my confusion. According to medical sources,
The chances of getting pregnant twice while using birth control pills correctly were astronomical. Then I stumbled upon a forum where women shared their experiences. One post caught my attention. A woman who had discovered that her mother-in-law had been replacing her birth control pills with placebos. The story sounded familiar, too familiar for comfort. That night, I lay awake in bed, my mind racing. What if someone was doing the same thing to me? What if my birth control pills weren't what they seemed? The next morning, I decided to test my theory. I carefully removed one of the pills from my current pack and placed it on a paper towel. Using a kitchen knife, I cut it in half, revealing a white interior with no colored center, unlike the birth control pills I remembered from my first pregnancy. My heart sank as I realized the truth. These weren't birth control pills. They were placebos, sugar pills designed to look like the real thing. Someone had been replacing my medication, deliberately causing me to get pregnant. But who and why? Vanessa's face immediately came to mind. Her constant presence in our home, her unusual interest in my reproductive choices, her overly enthusiastic reaction to both pregnancies. It all pointed to her, but the motive remained unclear. I needed proof, undeniable evidence that would confirm my suspicions. That's when I remembered the security camera Kevin had installed last year after a series of break-ins in our neighborhood. It was positioned to cover our living room and the hallway leading to the bedrooms and bathroom. If Vanessa was tampering with my medication, the camera might catch her in the act. But I couldn't just tell Kevin what I suspected. He would think I was crazy, paranoid from pregnancy hormones. I needed to gather evidence first. The next day, while Kevin was at work and Olivia was napping, I checked the camera's footage from the past month. I fast-forwarded through hours of empty rooms and occasional family activities, my heart pounding with each click of the mouse. And then I saw it. Vanessa entering our bathroom while I was in the shower. Her hands opening the medicine cabinet, taking out my birth control pills, and replacing them with a different pack. The whole operation took less than 30 seconds, her movements practiced and efficient. I watched the footage multiple times, tears streaming down my face. My own sister, the person I trusted most in the world, had been betraying me in the most intimate way possible. She had deliberately caused me to get pregnant not once, but twice, all while pretending to be the supportive, loving sister I thought she was. The question remained, why? What could possibly motivate her to do something so cruel, so manipulative? As I sat there staring at the damning evidence on my computer screen, I knew I had to confront her. But first, I needed to understand her motives. I needed to know why she had done this before I could decide how to respond. Over the next few days, I paid close attention to Vanessa's behavior. I decided to set a trap, to create a situation that would force Vanessa to reveal her true motives. I bought a new pack of birth control pills, this time with a distinctive purple case. I also bought a small nanny cam, designed to look like a digital clock, and placed it on the bathroom counter. Then I waited. It didn't take long. 2 days later, Vanessa came over to help. As soon as I went to lie down, she made her move. I watched the footage later that evening, my heart racing as I saw her enter the bathroom, glance around, and open the medicine cabinet. She took out my new birth control pills and replaced them with another pack. The next day, I confronted her. I invited her into our home office and closed the door. She looked concerned, but I just stared at her. I told her I knew what she had been doing. Her face went pale, her carefully constructed composure finally cracking. She stammered that she didn't know what I was talking about, but her eyes gave her away. I told her I had video evidence of her switching out my pills. Her shoulders slumped in defeat. And that's when she told me, her words painting a picture of jealousy and resentment that I never could have imagined. Vanessa's confession began with tears, her carefully constructed facade crumbling under the weight of her guilt. She sat across from me in our home office, her hands trembling as she spoke, her words a mixture of apology and justification. She was so sorry, she said. She never meant to hurt me, not really. She just wanted things to be fair. I stared at her, confused by her choice of words. Fair? What does fairness have to do with any of this? I asked her. She had deliberately caused me to get pregnant twice against my will. How was that fair? She took a deep breath, her eyes avoiding mine. It wasn't fair that I get to choose when to have kids, she said. It wasn't fair that I have this perfect life with the perfect job and the perfect boyfriend and now the perfect family. Some of us don't get to make those choices. Her words hung in the air between us, a cloud of resentment and jealousy that I had never noticed before. I had always seen Vanessa as the free spirit, the one who lived life on her own terms. But now I realized that her spontaneity might have been a necessity rather than a choice. I asked her what she was talking about, what choices she didn't get to make. Vanessa looked up at me, her eyes filled with tears and anger. Everything, she said. I've always had everything mapped out. College, career, Kevin, marriage, kids, all according to my perfect timeline. And she had just been there, watching me get everything I want while she was stuck in a dead-end job, dating guys who didn't care about her, unable to afford to even think about having kids. I was speechless, stunned by the depth of her resentment. I had never seen our lives as a competition, had never realized that she felt so left behind, so disadvantaged by comparison. I told her I never knew she felt that way. Why hadn't she ever talked to me about it? She laughed, a harsh, bitter sound. And say what, that she was jealous of my perfect life? I would have just felt sorry for her, offered to help, made her feel even more inadequate. As she spoke, I began to understand the twisted logic behind her actions. She hadn't been trying to hurt me, not really. She had been trying to level the playing field, to disrupt my carefully planned life and bring it more in line with her own chaotic existence. But why this? I asked, gesturing to my pregnant belly. Why tamper with my birth control? Why not just talk to me? Because I wouldn't have understood, she said, her voice rising with frustration. I've never had to struggle, never had to wonder how I'm going to pay my bills, never had to settle for less than I wanted. I get to decide when to have kids, when to get married, when to buy a house. Some of us don't have those luxuries. I thought about her words, about the truth behind them. It was true that my life had followed a relatively smooth path, that I had been fortunate in many ways. But it wasn't perfect. I had worked hard for everything I had. I told her that having a choice doesn't mean life is perfect, that I had given up a lot to get where I was. She shook her head, refusing to accept my explanation. It's easy for me to say that, she said. I have Kevin, I have Olivia, I have another baby on the way. I have the family she had always wanted but couldn't afford to have. Her words hit me like a physical blow, the realization dawning that this wasn't just about jealousy, it was about her own pain and disappointment. She wanted what I had, and in her desperation, she had decided to take it by force. I asked her if she wanted kids. Tears streamed down her face as she nodded, more than anything. But she couldn't take care of herself, let alone a child. Her boyfriend had left her, she was about to be evicted, and she hated her job. There was no way she could bring a baby into that mess. I listened, my heart breaking for her. I had been so focused on my own life that I had failed to see how much my sister was struggling. We talked for hours that day, Vanessa finally opening up about the depth of her depression and financial difficulties, me listening with a growing sense of guilt and responsibility. By the time she left, we had reached a fragile understanding. I wasn't ready to forgive her, but I could begin to understand the pain that had driven her to such extreme measures. We agreed to talk again, to try to repair the damage she had caused to our relationship. As I watched her walk away, I felt a mix of emotions: anger at her betrayal, pity for her situation, and confusion about how to move forward. I was pregnant with my second child, a baby conceived through deception and manipulation, and I had no idea how to tell Kevin the truth without destroying our family. The days following Vanessa's confession were a blur of emotional turmoil and difficult decisions. I struggled with how to process what she had done, how to reconcile the sister I thought I knew with the person who had betrayed me in such a fundamental way. Every time I looked at my growing belly, I was reminded of her deception, of the choice that had been stolen from me. Kevin noticed my distraction, my frequent moments of silence when I seemed lost in thought. He asked if I was okay, if something had happened between me and Vanessa when we talked. I hesitated, not sure how to explain the situation without revealing the full extent of Vanessa's betrayal. I told him we had a difficult conversation and that she was going through a lot. Kevin nodded sympathetically, his arm wrapping around my shoulders. He asked if there was anything we could do to help. His kindness, his willingness to support not just me but my family, made me feel even more guilty about keeping the truth from him. But how could I tell him that my own sister had deliberately caused me to get pregnant, not once, but twice? How would he react to such a betrayal, to the knowledge that our second child was conceived through deception? I decided to wait, to give myself time to process everything before involving Kevin. But the weight of the secret grew heavier with each passing day, straining not just my relationship with him, but my ability to enjoy this pregnancy as I had with my first. Meanwhile, Vanessa and I continued to talk, our conversations ranging from angry confrontations to tearful confessions. She was deeply ashamed of what she had done, desperate to make amends, but I struggled to move past the betrayal. I told her I didn't know how to trust her again, that she had violated me in the most intimate way possible. She knew, she replied, her voice thick with tears. She hated herself for it. She was so caught up in her own misery, her own jealousy, that she didn't think about how it would affect me. She wasn't trying to hurt me, not really. She was just trying to make things more equal between us. Her words still didn't make sense to me, still didn't justify what she had done. But as we continued to talk, I began to see the depth of her pain, the desperation that had driven her to such extreme measures. Vanessa had been struggling with depression for years, had been in and out of relationships with men who didn't treat her well, had been working a dead-end job that barely covered her expenses. She wanted what I had: stability, love, a family, but felt completely powerless to achieve it. As my second pregnancy progressed, I found myself growing more attached to the baby growing inside me, despite the circumstances of conception. This child was innocent, a victim of Vanessa's deception just as much as I was. I couldn't hold the baby responsible for how it was conceived, couldn't let my anger at Vanessa overshadow my love for this new life. But the question remained: how to move forward? How to repair my relationship with Vanessa? How to tell Kevin the truth? How to create a healthy environment for my children when their very existence was rooted in betrayal? I decided to seek therapy, both individually and with Vanessa. I needed help processing what had happened, needed guidance on how to navigate this complicated situation. The therapist was patient and understanding, helping me work through my anger and confusion, giving me tools to rebuild trust with Vanessa and, eventually, to have that difficult conversation with Kevin. She told me my feelings were valid, that what my sister did was a violation. It was okay to be angry, to feel hurt, to struggle with forgiveness. She also helped me see the situation from Vanessa's perspective, not to excuse her actions, but to understand the pain and desperation that had driven her to such extreme measures. People do desperate things when they feel powerless, the therapist explained. Over time, with the therapist's help, Vanessa and I began to rebuild our relationship. It was a slow, painful process, but gradually we found our way back to the sisterly bond we had once shared. The hardest conversation was yet to come, telling Kevin the truth. The therapist suggested that we have the conversation together with Vanessa present to take responsibility for her actions. It would be difficult but necessary for us to move forward as a family. I told Vanessa I was ready to tell Kevin, but that I needed her to be there to explain why she did what she did. She nodded, her expression serious. She knew she owed us that much. As we left the therapist's office that day, I felt a sense of nervous anticipation. The truth was about to come out, and there was no telling how Kevin would react. But I knew that this was a necessary step, not just for our relationship, but for the health of our growing family. The evening we decided to tell Kevin the truth was one of the most nerve-wracking of my life. My hands trembled as I prepared dinner, my mind racing through all the possible ways he might react. Would he be angry? Disappointed? Would he understand why I had kept this from him? Vanessa arrived early, looking pale and nervous. She had been seeing her own therapist for weeks, working through the issues that had led her to betray me. Tonight was her chance to take responsibility. After we put Olivia to bed, the three of us sat in the living room, the air thick with tension. I took a deep breath, trying to find the right words to begin this difficult conversation. I told Kevin there was something I needed to tell him about this pregnancy, something I should have told him sooner. He reached for my hand, his expression concerned. He asked if everything was okay with the baby. I assured him the baby was fine, but that how this pregnancy happened, it wasn't what we thought. I explained everything, my suspicions about the birth control pills, the discovery that they had been replaced with placebos, the security camera footage that had revealed Vanessa as the culprit. Kevin's expression changed from concern to confusion to disbelief as I spoke. He turned to Vanessa, asking her why she would do something like that. Vanessa took a deep breath, her hands trembling in her lap. She was jealous, she began, her voice barely audible. "I've always had everything figured out," she said, and she had always been struggling. She wanted what I had, but couldn't see any way to get it. She continued, explaining the depth of her depression and financial difficulties, her feelings of powerlessness and inadequacy. As she spoke, I could see the understanding dawning in Kevin's eyes, the compassion replacing his initial anger. She wasn't trying to hurt me, Vanessa concluded, tears streaming down her face. She was just trying to make things more equal between us. It was selfish and wrong, and there was no excuse for what she did. She was so sorry. The room fell silent, the weight of her confession hanging in the air. I watched Kevin, trying to gauge his reaction, my heart pounding in my chest. Finally, he spoke, his voice gentle but firm. He told Vanessa that what she did was wrong, that she had violated my trust and taken away my ability to make choices about my own body. He said that wasn't okay. Vanessa nodded, her head bowed in shame. He continued, his tone softening. He said he could understand why she felt so desperate, and he appreciated her telling us the truth and taking responsibility for what she had done. He turned to me, his eyes filled with concern. He asked how I was feeling about all of it, about the baby. I took a deep breath, trying to articulate the complicated mix of emotions I had been experiencing for months. I told him it had been hard, that this pregnancy wasn't something I chose. And knowing how it happened, it had been difficult to reconcile with the love I felt for this baby. Kevin wrapped his arms around me, pulling me close. He told me this baby was innocent and that we were going to love them just as much as we loved Olivia. He said the circumstances of their conception don't change that. His words brought tears to my eyes, the relief washing over me in waves. He understood. He wasn't angry. He was willing to move forward with me. As the months passed and my pregnancy progressed, our family began to heal. Vanessa continued therapy, and she and I slowly rebuilt our relationship. Kevin and I attended couples counseling, working through the feelings of betrayal and mistrust. By the time our son was born, we had reached a fragile peace. Vanessa was there in the delivery room, not as the person who had caused this pregnancy, but as the supportive sister and aunt she had always pretended to be. As I held my newborn son in my arms, I felt a sense of closure, of acceptance. This child, conceived through deception and betrayal, was no less loved, no less wanted than my daughter. He was a part of our family, a testament to our ability to overcome even the most difficult circumstances. Looking back on that time, I realize how much we all learned. Our family is stronger now, forged in the fire of betrayal and reconciliation. We carry the scars of what happened, but we also carry the wisdom that comes from surviving the unthinkable. As I watch my children play together, I feel a sense of gratitude for the family we've become. Imperfect, complicated, but resilient and loving in ways we never would have been without the challenges we faced. Life may not have gone according to my perfect plan, but in the end, I think it turned out exactly as it was meant to be.